So 40% of government revenue comes from the income tax. If the income tax were abolished today, government spending would revert all the way back to only to 1997. You can see how fast the government is growing, how much greater the spending is, and so forth. Now there are people who say abolish the income tax. And I say abolishing it without reducing a great deal of government spending would only bring more debt, more inflation, or both. I wouldn't want that. I want to abolish the income tax. But I want a corresponding cutting back of government agencies. Which ones? Well, let's start with foreign aid. And then let's Department of Education and Housing and Welfare and Medicine and Transportation and so on and so on and so on. Get back to states. States running their affairs. And yeah, there will be some states that will blow it, but there was competition amongst the states. One of the pieces of brilliance of the Founding Fathers set up competition among the states to be the best state, the one way you'd want to come and raise your family and start a business and so forth. Competition always produces excellence. We have no competition in the money field. It's a monopoly headed by the Federal Reserve. So let's analyze where we've been. How can all of what we've talked about be explained? Is it stupidity? Are you going to tell me Alan Greenspan is stupid? No. Is it ignorance? No. No, neither he or the leaders of our government, the presidents and the vice presidents and the heads of the committees and the big congressmen and so forth, they're not ignorant of what's going on. Well, if it's not stupidity and it's not ignorance, maybe it's design. And I said before that occasionally you get help from an unexpected source. There's a fellow named David Rockefeller. And he's writing here in his own book, Memoirs. And he's talking about his family. And he said, some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States. Characterizing my family and me as internationalists and conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. Ladies and gentlemen, our leaders aren't stupid. They aren't ignorant of facts. Therefore, it's hardly unreasonable to conclude that there is a design behind what is occurring. We're not fighting against people who believe in what they're doing is good for mankind. No. It's good for themselves. It's good for power base, for building power, for personal aggrandizement, and so forth. Now we have Secretary of the Treasury and the head of the Federal Reserve getting together to say that they want $700 billion more to get us out of a problem that was started because government was not doing its job in the first place. And they have even said that they want this without the Congress having anything to say about it. Right? That's pretty incredible, pretty arrogant, pretty conspiratorial in my view. The Constitution that we so revere says all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House. If the House will not originate the $700 billion bailout, that's it, according to the Constitution. And so we say, we take our country back through the House of Representatives. That's where the power of the purse is. A mere 6 days after I delivered these remarks in Denver, huge public pressure encouraged the House of Representatives to reject the multi-billion-dollar bailout bill. But the Senate crafted and passed its own version on October 1st, just a few days later. The original 3-page bill had ballooned to some 400 pages with $150 billion added. Then, with ongoing economic turmoil in the markets, enormous wheeling and dealing pressed the House to pass the Senate's version of the $850 billion bailout bill. They called it the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act of 2008. The House did so on October 3rd. As of November 4, the national debt now stands at $10.58 trillion and is expected to continue to grow by $2 to $4 billion per day. 2 weeks after Congress passed the bill, British Prime Minister Gordon Brown penned an op-ed piece in the Washington Post stating that global problems we face require global solutions. Accordingly, he called for global governance and a world trade agreement. Brown reflected positively on the accomplishments of American and European visionaries who built a new international economic order. That's the New World Order. Now he and leaders of other nations are calling for the boldest of global cooperation to create rules for our new global economy. All of this, of course, would mean a further loss of American independence, coupled with more international controls over our economy. So what can we do about all this? First, competing currencies must be established. Repealing the legal tender law that says only Federal Reserve currency is legitimate is imperative. With its monopoly status, the Fed has been able to inflate the currency at will, debasing its value and robbing the poor and middle class of their savings, purchasing power, and investments. Once the Fed's currency is given some much-needed competition, sound money based on real commodities, such as gold and silver, will drive out fiat currency that is backed by nothing. Second, in tandem with the introduction of a competing currency, a corresponding reduction of taxes and government spending must also take place. Congress, as well as state and local governments, must be pressured into fiscal responsibility. As long as governments are allowed to spend wildly, the Fed will inflate the currency to cover the shortfall, or there will be more borrowing from China and elsewhere. Third, as fiat currency is replaced by sound money, urge your congressmen to support legislation to abolish the Federal Reserve. Congress started it, Congress can end it. Fourth, state legislators should introduce resolutions to exert additional pressure on Congress to allow the creation of sound money. None of these welcome developments will happen in a vacuum. They will only come to pass when concerned citizens join together to exert sufficient constituent grassroots pressure on their representatives and senators. I heartily recommend that you link up with others by joining a JBS.org Freedom Campaign meetup group. With an alliance of thousands of groups across the country, Americans can begin the process of restoring sound money, ending wild spending, and abolishing the Fed. We also invite all of those viewing this program to go to jbs.org and become a free online member of our society. Once you do join, you'll get updates, legislative alerts, and the important information needed to remain free. While working with others, educate yourself about the nature of money, inflation, the Federal Reserve, and economic freedom. One book we highly recommend is The Creature from Jekyll Island. Of course, we also recommend our affiliate magazine, The New American. Time is running out to get our country back on track with limited government, free market economics, and sound currency. Get involved today. Thank you very much, and may God bless America.